I know this is not going to help because trust me, I feel you. I do. And I didn't really want to not, at least have someone kind of stop in and say, "Yeah, I know what you feel. I do." And I'll try to help a little bit with this. So I don't think I can, but I will give it a shot. And at least if nothing else, I'm just another voice that says I do understand it can be pretty bad. Okay. Yes, I am the same. I like the idea of what SS2 does. I really like that idea. I like the idea of building up settlements. I do. But when something gets really this complex, it is better, and I do include myself in this mix. So when I say something, it also applies to me. It's not just an opinion about somebody else because the opportunity applies itself. But including myself, when something gets so complicated, oftentimes it's better to redo that in a more modular fashion. So, as an example, it would be better to have, let's say, at a level one, you simply have settlers build the plots. You can select them and build them, and you don't have to worry about all of the mechanics around the gameplay. And then, if you need to add the mechanics to the gameplay, then you may have to update, let's say, a script, one particular script, which would be like the same script, but the additional functions. And then you can have level 2 and level 3 and level 4. I think that in the development, and team members are welcome to jump in and correct me, but I think what happened during development is once you have the base design, and I think the idea was to kind of make it that way, but once you have the base design, it kind of snowballed. Let's add this. Let's add this. Oh my God, we got these great ideas. You got some really good storytelling. You have these things all coming into play. Let's just do this. Let's do this. And then I think it got to the point that over time, let's just go ahead and throw everything in there that we want to put in there, and then we'll fix it later. Not that that was a negative thing, but we know there's some bugs, but let's get everything in so we can move on to the next project. And that's what I think has happened. So sometimes tracking down any type of bug can be difficult. However, I think some of the bugs are inherent to the engine. And I'm going to show you in my game here in just a minute. Just kind of bear with me. I know I have a tendency to kind of talk a lot, but just kind of bear with me. It can be very difficult to troubleshoot because there's a lot of scripts and there's a lot of things involved. Like there's really, really a lot of things. And when you're trying to and I'm not trying to say you don't know these things. I'm just talking, so just kind of bear with me. But it's your brain has this understanding of how it should work, and then you're trying to track it down, and what you almost subconsciously do is burn through the code. I'm just going to assume this, and this, and this, just burning through the code without having to put in a bunch of checks and all kinds of stuff. It would almost be a situation where a person would need to say, I have a game save that is not working. So I need to display whatever variables the script is looking for, or better yet, I'm going to need a little custom script that may take maybe 10 minutes to write, or maybe 5 minutes. I'm going to give you this script. I want you to put this in your game, activate it, and then I want to see the results. And that way, you can still use that game save in whatever condition caused the problem. But oftentimes it's just the design. It's either the design of the game, or it is the way that scripting is done. Sometimes scripting tries to do things that Bethesda hadn't intended, but hey, I can do this. It's like you say that. I remember there was a mod talking about like exploits, or a video talking about exploits, but it's not really an exploit, it's just misuse. Something that it wasn't intended to do, well, something that it was supposed to do, but you can extend its function beyond what it was planned to do. So it's a misuse of something as opposed to an exploit. But yeah, vent anytime. Okay, so Bethesda did change some stuff. I think they fixed some things, but the what happened when it broke is all of the address locations in the code that all changed. So trying to hook into those addresses, which are now different, is going to hook you into code that you don't want to hook into. So it could actually crash the game and cause a lot of problems. So, and from what I understand, or from what I've heard, just recently heard, they may or may not do anything with that. So mod authors who have things that hook into the code may or may not do anything with it. But let me show you what I'm talking about over here. All right, so let me go over here to my game, and I'll try to keep this incredibly short. Okay, so I'm gonna drop this. Okay, so this is my game. These over here, all of these, from this point down to this point, these are all times I've played the game, and you can see the individual times that I played. I've played it as long as 7, 8 hours without a crash, and then sometimes it'll crash. I haven't tried that this time because I'm usually doing something and then I go off and do something else and I have to stop playing the game, or I'm just testing something out. But if you notice, all of a sudden here's a crash, and it happened a day, let's see, like a little over a day later. So a little over 29 hours into actual gameplay, I finally get my first crash, right? So you can take a look. I know you can't see this, but I'm just showing you how to me, it doesn't relate to anything. So looking at this is a null reference. Bethesda seems to have an incredible problem with null references in their game, because notice this is in Fallout 4. This is not in a DLL. So either this was caused by a script function, if, like, let's say F4S, you don't have F4SC, right? So that cannot be the problem. I don't believe the Xbox Series X actually uses a F4SC. I could be wrong. You can correct me on it if I'm wrong, but I don't believe it does. But what I wanted to show you is I did have a crash, and all I did was go into this Weston water treatment plant and hit the tab to bring up my Pip-Boy, just to bring that up. I have done that countless times before through all of this, just countless times before, no problem at all. It worked consistently. But for some reason in Weston, and when the game crashed, I went back into Weston and did the same thing, and I didn't have that problem. So for some reason, the game engine decides to crash, and it's completely random. And when you look at it, I've seen this before, and a lot of people I see are having problems. Okay, you see where it says something like Ninode scene? I think there's a scene in here somewhere. This looks recursive to me. So it looks like it's doing some kind of recursive, and I haven't checked to see if it's actually trying to do something, different parts of a mesh or what this is. But it's not repeatable. It's random. So for some reason, the game engine is when you try to do something, and it's true. I do have mods in that Pip-Boy. Some of the mods might be where it adds a tab, but I think those tabs are DLLs. Let's see, we can take a real quick look here. See, I think this adds, let's see, yeah, see, pip tabs. This is a DLL. I don't know what this DLL is doing. I don't know what it's changing. It may be changing something directly in F4SE, and that's what caused the crash. So maybe there is a certain timing or condition that is causing this. But I think that there's a certain game flow to the engine, and I think anytime things are done outside of that game flow, it opens that door to something happening. So I wanted to show you that this is completely random, and it's like, okay, so that tells me the potential for that crash is there. What it means, I have no idea, and I don't even have SS2 in there. It doesn't even. It is modded. It is a modded game. You can see the mods over here. It is modded. So there's a few mods in there. Not much, but there is a few. So, I don't think it's so much which mod did it. I do have previs in here. I do have some previs pre-combine in here at the bottom. But, I do have the PRP, previs repair pack, I believe it's called. But I think some people call them pre-combines, which is previs pre-combines. But I I have no idea. But that means the potential is there. The crash potential is there. I just have to hit the right situation that brings that out. Now, I think some of those existed in the base game. I truly do. I think they're base game issues. And I think that's part of the reason that it was dumbed down because they needed to solve the problem, but to go back to a meeting and consistently say, we have this issue we need to solve. It's an engine level problem. I think Todd or somebody might have said, "Oh no, 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 let's just kind of push this through," or maybe they felt that the people above them, almost like a mental overlord, if you will, that they feel they can't push through that barrier, that they don't want to do this. That does happen to people. So, maybe they're like, no, 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 we don't want to do this. It works like this. Let's just stick with what works. And if you think that's a very general statement. Of course, you want to stick with what works, but you want to make sure that it works up to expectation. But a lot of times Bethesda always fell back on the art department to carry the weight. But I don't want to get into that much kind of negativity. But yeah, I just want to show you that it does randomly happen. I do not have SS2 in here, and I still get a crash. It's not the same area. I went right back in there and opened the Pip-Boy, and I didn't have a problem. So the crash potential is there. It's just whenever those conditions surface, you've got it. And I don't know if that. I don't necessarily. I'm not saying that explains every crash in something like, let's say, Sim Settlements 2. Some of it might be it's simply trying to do too much. It's trying to do too much. There's too many threads going on. There's too many stacks. There's too many frames on the stack. Because even on your system, even on an Xbox Series X, there's still a VM running. It's still code running on a VM. I mean, on an X. Imagine a Series X is basically a PC in a box, except instead of having a separate graphic card, your GPU is on the motherboard itself. And you can use cooling pipes as opposed to, let's say, a lot of fans like you would have on a PC. That's part of the design of it. So, but it's still a PC. It truly is. A cell phone is still a PC. It's a limited PC, but it's still a PC. So it's still running the virtual machine. It's getting overloaded, and some things are happening, I think, out of sequence. Once that happens, you've got a crash. There's just no way for you to try and detect what that error is to even figure it out. And even here, because this is random, I did not write any of this stuff. I didn't write this particular buff out this buff out thing. So this stuff doesn't mean a lot to me. I'm sure it means something to somebody, but I can't necessarily decode this at that detail of a level. But just wanted to share that with you. And yes, it is frustrating as heck. I think it got worse, and I know I'm droning, so just exit me anytime. But I think it got worse when mod authors felt that the expectation was on them to fix every bug. They made an attempt at it, but it's just simply not possible. Now, whether that is because they didn't necessarily understand the nature of the problem, or they were trying to do a workaround based on how they understood something worked, which was not necessarily the really inside nitty gritty. And that happens, it's okay. I mean, to make the effort is a big undertaking in and of itself. And I think it just kind of says, basically, quote quote, screw this, I'm not doing this anymore because I'm tired of fooling with this. And I think that's what happens, and then the user just gets frustrated, because they're like, well, I can't do this, I'm looking for someone else to do it. And then the mod author might not intentionally take that frustration out on the person, saying, it's not going to be fixed. I don't want to listen to you anymore. It's not going to be fixed. Rather than, we tried to fix this, but we just couldn't get it working. That kind of thing. All right, I've got to hop here real quick, and but yeah, I just wanted to share that with you. And good luck well, don't let that deter you from playing mods or modded games. It does happen. All right. So good luck, and just try and have fun and not get too frustrated.